Sarah has 10 pounds of dried fruit, and it's selling for $6.25 per pound. She wants to know how many pounds of mixed nuts selling for $4.50 per pound she needs to make a trail mix that sells for $5 a pound. So M is going to be the amount of mixed nuts, and we're going to complete the table here. So she gets 10 pounds of dried fruit. It's $6.25 per pound. So the total price would be $6.25 times 10. Then mixed nuts. Sarah is going to get M amount of mixed nuts. M is the number of pounds of mixed nuts. It costs Sarah $4.50 per pound. So therefore 4.5 M would be the total price. Now, just like we had with the weighted averages, because really that is what this is as well. It's a weight being applied to an average. We would take and add 10 plus 10 pounds plus the amount of pounds in mixed nuts. And she wants to sell it for $5 a pound. So that should equal 5 times 10 plus M. So our rational equation is going to be 6.25 times 10 plus 4.5 M. And she wants it to be 5 times 10 plus M. So now let's solve the equation to be able to figure out what is the amount of pounds of mixed nuts that she needs. So 6.25 times 10 gives me 62.5. Whoops. Just 62 there. That's not a decimal. 62.5 plus 4.5 M equals, and distribute your 5. So I have 50 plus 5M. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 62.5 from both sides. And I get negative 12.5. Then we're going to subtract 5M from both sides. And I get negative 0.5 M equals negative 12.5. So now we're going to divide by negative 0.5 on both sides. And I get that the number of pounds she should have of mixed nuts should be 25. Let's take a look at 2 more word problems. Alicia. Alicia's average speed riding her bike is 11.5 miles per hour. She takes a road trip of 40 miles. It takes her 1 hour and 20 minutes with the wind and 2 hours and 30 minutes against the wind. We need to write an expression for Alicia's time with the wind. So we're going to say that X is the speed of the wind. And if she takes a round trip of 40 miles, that means that only half of that is going to be with the wind because the other half would be against the wind. So the whole 20 miles is the distance divided by her speed. Now, without any kind of wind, she travels 11.5 miles per hour. And with the wind means that the wind is adding to her speed. So there's our expression for Alicia's time with the wind. For the expression for Alicia's time against the wind, again, she would have half of that total distance of 40 miles. So 20 miles. And against the wind would be taking her speed and subtracting off the speed of the wind. So we want to know, how long does it take for Alicia to actually complete the trip? It said that it takes her 1 hour and 20 minutes with the wind and 2 hours and 30 minutes against the wind. So we can add to that 1 hour and 20 minutes plus 2 hours and 30 minutes. Add those two together for a grand total of 3 hours and 50 minutes. Now, I would recommend changing that whole thing into hours. Okay, so I have 3 hours, and then 50 minutes into hours would be 50 minutes out of 60, which is 5 out of 6. So we have 3 hours plus 5/6 of an hour. And changing that to a fraction would give us 23/6 of an hour, which I know doesn't really help things in the real world, but it's definitely a lot easier number to calculate with than having to break everything up into hours and minutes in our equations. So now we're going to use all of the information from A, B, and C to write our own equation to solve. We take the time with the wind, and we add that to the time against the wind, and that should equal her total time. Now we have to actually go about the business of solving this. I probably should have written a little smaller, but we'll muddle our way through. We need to find a common denominator here, and the common denominator would be 6, because only one of them has a 6, 11.5 plus x, and 11.5 minus x. So in this first problem, or this first fraction, the 20 needs to have contributed to it. The denominator is missing a 6, and it's missing an 11.5 minus x. In the next fraction, we have a 20 in the numerator. It's missing the 6, and it's missing an 11.5 plus x. And the final fraction has a 23 on top. It has the 6, but it's missing both the 11.5 plus x and the 11.5 minus x. Now we're actually going to work through and solve this. It's just like a regular equation, no new information given. I'm going to actually switch over to paper so I have a little bit more room on here. So 20 times 6 is 120 times 11.5 minus x. And then I have 20 times 6, again, 120 times 11.5 plus x. And it equals, I'm going to go ahead and FOIL these out rather than distributing the 23 first, because you should be able to recognize that this is a factored form of difference of squares. When I FOIL this out, I will get a square term minus another perfect square. So you can draw your box over to the side if you want with the 11.5 plus x and 11.5 minus x, but you will get that your middle term will cancel out. So 11.5 times 11.5, 132.25, negative 11.5x, positive 11.5x, and negative x squared. So I have 23 times negative x squared plus 132.25. Oops. And now I can distribute. So I'm going to distribute the 23 to both of those. I'm going to distribute the 120 to both of these. So I get 120 times 11.5, 1,380 minus 120x, 1,380 plus 120x equals negative 23x squared, and 23 times 132.25 gives me 3,041.75. All right, so now let's go about solving this. Negative 120x plus 120x, gone. 1,380 plus 1,380, 2,760. Subtract off 3,041.75. And I get negative 281.75. Now we're dividing by negative 23. So x equals 12.25. Now, since we're talking about speed here, it doesn't really make sense to put a plus or minus in front of this. So it's just 12.25 is what x squared equals. So again, when we take our square root of this, we don't need to put a plus or minus. Square root is 3.5. So it's the speed of the wind is 3.5 miles per hour. I probably should put a little bit more space in those for next time. All right, last word problem for 8.6. Last bit of notes. Oh, just kidding. There's two more word problems. Kendall and Shandi wax cars. Kendall can wax a particular car in 60 minutes and Shandi can wax the same car in 80 minutes. They plan on waxing the same car together and want to know how long it'll take. So first we need to figure out how much will Kendall actually wax in 1 minute. So she can wax in 60 minutes a whole car. So 1/60th is how much she can do in 1 minute. So in X minutes, Kendall should be able to do X times 1/60th, or X over 60. Now Shandi in 80 minutes can do one car. So 1 minute, she can do 1/80th of the car. So in X minutes, Shandi should be able to do X over 80 of the car. So our rational expression, our rational equation to represent them working together on a car would be the amount that Kendall can complete in X minutes plus the amount that Shandi can complete in X minutes should equal one total car. So let's go ahead and solve this equation. In order to solve this, we're going to need to use a common denominator, least common denominator for 60 and for 80. So I would recommend writing out your prime factorization for 60 and the prime factorization for 80. So 60, we know that to be, if you did out your factor tree, 2 times 3 times 2 times 5. And 80 would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. And that's just a factor tree worked out, but you can always check it to make sure. So I have 2 times 3 times 2 times 5. And then 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. So our prime factorizations are correct. Sorry, that's only at the bottom of the page there. Which one has the most amount of 2's? That would be the 80. Which one has the most amount of 3's? The 60. And they both have an equal number of 5's. So our LCD that we're going to that would be on the bottom, if you really want to know what it all is together. 2 to the 4th power times 3 times 5 would be 240. So the 60 times what equals 240, or you can look back at what 60 already has. 60 has 2 2's, so it needed 2 more. So the x is going to be multiplied by 2 more 2's. It already had a 3, and it already had the 5. The 80 had all 4 of the 2's. It already had the 5, but it did not have the 3. Or you could ask yourself, 80 times what is 240? And finally, the 1 didn't have any of it. So our equation that we're solving is 4x plus 3x equals 240. 4x plus 3x gives me 7x equals 240. 240 divided by 7 gives me 34 point, I don't know, we'll say round to the nearest tenth. It should take them 34.3 minutes to finish the car if they work together.